Executions are usually remembered as moments. A sentence is read, a punishment is carried out, a life ends. But in 1581, an execution didn't last minutes. It lasted 3 days, not because something went wrong, not because mercy intervened, but because it was designed that way. The man at the center of it was Peter Neers, a notorious criminal whose reputation had grown to almost mythic proportions. He was accused of robbery, murder, an act so horrific that they blurred the line between crime and legend. By the time he was finally captured, the public didn't see a man anymore. They saw a monster, and monsters, they believed, deserved more than death. The court did not sentence him simply to be executed. Instead, they issued a punishment meant to be remembered, a prolonged spectacle of suffering intended to terrify anyone who might consider following the same path. This execution would not be swift. It would be instructional. The goal was simple: keep him alive. The executioners began by tearing at his flesh with red-hot pincers, not quickly, not carelessly. Each movement was deliberate. Each wound was placed with precision. Between each act, they paused, watching his breathing, waiting for his body to stabilize before continuing. The crowd stayed. This wasn't hidden away in a dungeon or carried out in secrecy. It was public. The pain was the point. By the time the first day ended, his body was already unrecognizable, and yet he was still alive. That alone would have been horrifying enough, but the executioners were only getting started. On the second day, the punishment escalated. Limbs were mutilated, bones were shattered, old wounds were reopened, ensuring the pain never dulled into numbness. At several points, the execution had to stop, not because anyone felt sympathy, but because they feared he might die too soon. When his condition worsened, he was given food and water, in some moments, even rudimentary medical attention, not to save him, but to make sure the execution could continue. By now, the execution had transformed into something darker than punishment. It had become endurance, a test of how much suffering a human body could endure before finally giving out. When the third day arrived, what remained of him barely resembled a living person, and yet witnesses recorded that he was still conscious, still breathing, still responding. Only when the executioners were satisfied that the sentence had been fully carried out did they allow it to end. After 3 days, it was finally over. This execution wasn't just about one man. It was a warning. In an era without modern policing, fear was authority. The longer the suffering lasted, the louder the message became. Justice wasn't about fairness. It was about terror. Executions are often remembered for how they end. This one is remembered because it refused to.